Hello friends, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be chatting through all the books that I read in the month of October. So in the month of October, I read 16 books, which is absolutely incredible. So as per usual, we're going to use my little mug and pick how I'm going to do my wrap up. So we're just going to shake it up and see what we get. So this is the one I pulled. So star rating, best to worst. So let me rearrange the books and we will get into it. Okay, all of the books have been sorted and I did rank the books even though they have the same rating. So like if I have two books that are 4 stars, I put one over the other if I liked it more. So starting with 5 stars, let's get into it. I had 3 5-star reads in the month of October, which is absolutely incredible for me. I feel like I have been lacking 5-star reads all year, so I'm super excited I had 3 this month. The first one is Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. This is a new horror release that was just released in October, and I absolutely loved this book. I did receive an ARC of this book, so thank you so much to the publisher for sending me a copy. I truly enjoyed this book so much. I just feel like this first paragraph perfectly describes this book, so let me just read it to you. Driving home late one night, Etienne Larkin finds a corpse on a pitch black road deep in the Irish countryside. She takes the corpse to a remote farmhouse. So begins a night of unspeakable horror that will take her to the very brink of sanity. It truly just goes crazy from there, and it becomes like a generational horror, and it affects her and the future, and it's just so well done. I truly love this book so much. I thought it was perfectly paced for the story that it was trying to tell, and the characters are really interesting, and there is just this like feeling of doom the entire time I was reading this book in the best way possible. I felt so creeped out, so uneasy, and I loved that, truly. Like, that's what I want when I read horror, is to just feel that, and this author did an amazing job of making me feel that way, so I would highly recommend this. I haven't read a lot of horror books. I definitely want to read more, and this so far is one of my absolute favorites. 5 stars. Another 5-star read, we have God Killer by Hannah Kanar. This is an Illumicrate book that I received several months ago and I've been meaning to get to, and I am so glad I finally did because I loved this. We actually follow several different main characters. So the first one that we get introduced to in the very first chapter, it is just explosive with action. Her family is thrown into the sea as a sacrifice to one of the ocean gods, and ever since then, she is on the hunt to get revenge for her family, and she is tracking down these gods and killing them. And it has been decreed in this world that nobody can worship gods anymore. It's just too dangerous, and gods are just untrustworthy. So nobody worships any gods, and if you do, you keep it very quiet. So we follow our main character, who is a god killer. They are hired to go kill gods, or they just seek them out to kill them. Then we follow another character who has bonded with a god, and the god is actually this little like rabbit creature right here, which he's so cute. His name's Sketty, is like his nickname, which every time they said that, all I could think of was like little kid me. I couldn't say spaghetti, so I would call it Sketty. So like the entire time I was reading this book, I just kept thinking that every time they said his name, and I just thought that was hilarious. But anyways, back to the synopsis. So we also follow another character. I forget his name. He had a really cool name, but he is a knight who is on a secret quest, and all 3 of them end up traveling together, and they are on a quest together for different reasons, and I loved it. I love quest stories like this. It was so cozy, it was so fun, and I truly loved it so much. Like, this felt like the perfect fall, kind of get you into the winter spirit kind of read. It was just so cozy and lovely, and the audiobook was perfection. I just flew through this book. I truly loved it so much, and I did go ahead and pre-order book 2 because I'm gonna need it. The last of the 5 stars that I have for October, we have Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed. I loved this so much, and I feel like it hasn't been said enough about this book, or maybe I just haven't heard anybody else talk about this book very much, but this is in fact a horror book, which I didn't realize going into it, but absolutely loved by the end. So we follow this family, and there's 3 daughters and their father, and their mother has died, and you find out why in the book. It plays a pretty significant role, and their father is not the greatest person. He's kind of gone off the rails since their mother has died, and he has warded the house so that they cannot leave. And he makes specific stipulations so that they can leave if they can acquire something. But the something that he makes them have to acquire in order to leave is nearly impossible to get a hold of without like venturing to the ocean, which they live nowhere near. So we follow our main character. She is the middle sister or the youngest sister. There's 3 sisters, and her and her sisters used to be able to sneak out and go see the world because they have been very secluded, and then their father becomes more and more strict about things, and it's a very interesting tale. I believe it's a retelling of some kind. It feels like it's pulling from a couple different fairy tales with like the evil father and the 3 sisters, and it definitely has fairy tale vibes. I loved this one a lot. It was so well done, and it was absolutely amazing. I just loved it. The audiobook again was great for this one. The writing style was like beautiful and purpley. It was just so lush and perfect to read. I truly just enjoyed it so much. Getting into 4-star reads, the first one I have is A Study in Drowning, also by Ava Reed. I didn't realize that I was just reading a bunch of Ava Reed this month. So this is a kind of, I would almost call it like urban fantasy, because it does have some fantastical elements, but it is kind of dark academia, which is the main reason why I wanted to read it. So we follow 2 different characters, the first of which is, oh golly, names are so hard for me, Effie, and she loves fairy tales and books, and as she's going to university, she really wants to pursue literature, but as a woman, she can't, so she settles for the next best thing, which is, I believe, archaeology or architecture? I think it's architecture. And so she's studying this, and then her absolute favorite author recently passed away, and she receives a letter to go to his manor, and his son wants her to fix up the house and make it look nice because she's an architecture student. So she goes there, and another student from the college is also there, and he is a literature student. And they kind of have like a rivalry between them, which is like really charming. It's not really hate, they don't like hate each other. I really enjoyed this one. It was just a nice read. Like, I honestly don't have like many thoughts on it. I just thought it was really fun. Like, I'm just here for vibes, and this delivered, and it was so good. Next up for 4 stars, we have The Seep by Channa Porter. I believe some of these books I'm mentioning have also been for Spookoplathon prompts, but honestly, I can't even remember what they were for. So I did almost finish my TBR for that, but I think I missed like 1 book, which is fine. Whatever. So this is a really short little horror novella, I believe, in which we follow our main character who is at this party, and we learn kind of about this world, and it's really interesting. There's this substance called the seep, in which people can like manipulate their body in any sort of way. You can become an animal, you can go back in time and become a baby again, and there's like anything and anything you could think of to do to your body. Like, you can have wings, you can have like a horse head, like whatever you want, you can make happen on your body with this substance. And so we follow our main character whose partner decides that they want to become a baby again. And so now she's on her own, and the baby who is her partner has like been adopted to another family. And it's just super strange, but it's a really interesting look at this like alien species. And it was interesting. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It was a super fast, quick read. It was a good spooky time, and I liked it. It was weird. And lastly, the lowest of the 4 stars that I have is Ink Blood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres. I liked this one, but I didn't like it as much as I was hoping to. So this is essentially a book about a book, and we follow a couple different people, and we follow two estranged sisters who have to come back together after they have discovered that there is maybe something going on with their books. They have like these magical books, and there's mystery and magic, romance and intrigue, and it is a debut, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. I don't know if I would read the sequel to it. I almost want to reread it like physically. I did listen to the audiobook and I don't know if that was the best route for this story. I liked it well enough, but maybe reading it physically would affect me differently. But it was fine. It's like a low 4-star for me, but I would still recommend it. I think a lot of people will really enjoy this one, especially if you love a little bit of magic sprinkled in there and books about books. I love that. So it was good, but like not my favorite. Getting into 3-star reads, there's a lot. I feel like my year of reading has been mainly 3 stars, so let's get into it. So the highest of the 3 stars, we have How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This was my book club pick for the month for my in-person book club, and I really like this one. I didn't love it as much, but I feel like the creepy factor, Grady Hendrix knows how to do. I was so creeped out reading this. I hated Pumpkin, like, oh my gosh, no thank you. And a lot of people in book club really enjoyed this book too, which is great. So in the story we follow our main character Louise, who has just been notified that her parents have died in a car crash. So she's going back home to take care of their estate, to kind of get things sorted out. And unfortunately for her, her brother is joining them. So her and her brother are kind of estranged. They did not have the greatest childhood together. They had some really weird things happen in their childhood that is explored in this book, and it's completely understandable why they may not like each other very much. And I liked it a fair bit. I feel like it's a little long for what it was doing, and I felt so anxious the whole time reading this book, which was great for Grady Hendrix to be able to make readers feel like that, but also terrible because I almost didn't want to read the book because I know I'd feel kind of awful while I did. The reason why I was anxious is because it made me think of what I would do when my parents pass away, and like all the work that comes with that, like estate and bank accounts and your whatever, like all those things is just so stressful, and it just was making me feel really stressed out, and I was like, oh my gosh. But good on Grady Hendrix for like being able to write that, and I feel like he must have gone through that like recently or in the past couple of years, because he wrote that experience so well from like what I've seen of people around me who've had to go through that. Like it just rang really authentic. So I like this one a fair bit. I gave it 3 stars though. Like it's not my favorite of his works, but it was still pretty good. Next up on the 3-star list, we have Brizinger by Christopher Paolini. This is book 3 in the Aragon series. I am currently working on rereading this entire series in anticipation of Murtagh coming out, and this one is so far my least favorite that I've read. These books just keep getting longer and longer with less and less going on in them, which is not my favorite. So I really didn't enjoy this one. I feel like the endings of these books are absolute perfection. I love them, but the beginning and middle, so you know, 2/3 of the book are really, really boring. But like the last chunk of the books are always the best. And I don't know, I just don't think little kid me really read any good books, because I thought this was like my favorite series ever as a kid, but rereading them now as an adult, I'm like, how? Why? These are not as good as I remember, but it's still fun, but it's not as good as I had thought. Next up on the list, we have The Family Game by Catherine Steadman, I believe. So I read this for the Literally Dead book club. I just wanted to participate with them more, but I have a lot of book clubs going on, so I think I may have to drop participating in this one because I just have so many. So this is a thriller book in which you follow our main character who is marrying into this super uber rich family, and they are kind of creepy. Like they have some really weird things going on, and our main character receives this like old kind of cassette player type thing, and she has to go find a device to be able to listen to it. And as she's listening to it, she is figuring out more about this family, and there's all these weird games that they play, and it's just very interesting, and it really explores this super uber rich family. I liked it well enough. I think it was a fun thriller, but I feel like with all thrillers, they're never like, 5 stars the best. I think I maybe have 2 or 3 that I've done that with, but otherwise they're just kind of like something to breeze through really quick. So it was 3 stars. I liked it, but I kind of am already forgetting the details. Next up we have Ankle Snatcher by Grady Hendrix. This is a super short little story that is on KU. Literally like 20 minutes later, I finished it and I liked it a fair bit. I feel like it just wasn't long enough. Like 30 pages is just not long enough to flesh out a story, I think. At least this story was not enough. Like it needed a lot more page time to really develop its creepiness. And I feel like Grady Hendrix in general needs a decent amount of page time to really build up his creepiness. And when he does, it is so good. But this one didn't get that page time and it really should have. So I gave it 3 stars. Like it was good, but it could have been a lot longer, and I think I would have given it a lot higher rating if it was a longer book. Next up is Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. I did receive an ARC of this, which I was really confused about because this book has been out for a while, but then I realized that this is the ARC for the paperback, which is coming out or has already come out on the 24th of October. So this is much more of a contemporary story than I thought, and it's extremely character-based. The more I read of Olivia Blake, the more I realize that she is just a character-based author, which there's nothing wrong with that. Good on her. But I don't love that, at least not in the way she writes it. It's not my favorite because I don't like her characters. And like, I can enjoy a book with characters I don't like, but for this one, I just didn't like it at all. So I honestly can't even remember what this one's really about. I just know I didn't really enjoy it. So sorry, this is kind of a terrible review, but it's really blanking in my mind of even what happened. Next up for 3 stars, we have The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This is definitely my least favorite of his works. This is like the least creepy of his things that I've read so far. This one reads a lot more thrillery, which is totally fine, but it definitely feels more like a thriller than a horror book. So if a thriller is more your vibe, I feel like you might really enjoy this one. So we follow my character who is part of this group called the Final Girl Support Group. They are all final girls in some sort of capacity and are coming together to talk about their experience and kind of do like group therapy together. And slowly, one by one, the final girls are being picked off and they kind of have to figure out what's going on and who's doing it. I honestly can't even remember what even happened in this book because I did read this quite a bit ago and the details are just slipping from my mind, but I didn't love it. I was kind of just dragging my feet reading this one because I wasn't loving it. So it was fine, but definitely my least favorite of his works. Next up, we have my book club pick for October, which was Mr. Magic by Kirsten White, I think. So I did do an entire live show on this book. It's about 30 minutes long, so I will leave that linked up above if you'd like to go check it out. You can hear all of my thoughts. I answered a bunch of questions about the book. We chatted in the comments. It was a great time and I had a fun time doing a live show. I've never done that before for just a single book and it was super fun. So I'll be doing that for all the other books in the future. So honestly, I'm just gonna let y'all go watch that video because I gave all my thoughts there. But basically, it was fine. Didn't love it. And last up for 3-star reads, we do have a 2 and a 1-star coming up, which is pretty terrible. But the last of the 3 stars, we have My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I did not like this book very much. It was just very chaotic. And upon reflection, I did like Jade. Like, I think it was a really well done horror book, but I just didn't love all of the pop culture references and being talked to so much about horror movies that have been out, and it just is not my favorite. Like, I don't love pop culture references in books, and this is all that book was, which is totally fine, but it just is not my favorite to read. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Like, I liked it enough. I wish I liked it more because so many people do enjoy it, but it just wasn't for me. Coming up with a 2-star, which I'm kind of putting 2 stars now as books that like are okay. They're not the best, they're not the greatest. 3 stars are like they're good. I liked it enough, but like also not the greatest. So it's not like a terrible rating, unlike the 1 star I have to talk about, but it's also, you know, not the best. So the next book we have is Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. I read this in just a few days because I was working on a project at work and I just flew through this. So in this book, we follow a group of characters who are coming together to steal back art from various museums like the Met and all these really big popular museums and return them back to China where they belong. It's a very interesting story on belonging and being Chinese American and exploring that identity. And I just hated how the heist was handled. I feel like it was done very, very poorly. And if they were to try to do anything that they did in this book in real life, it would fail miserably. And I just can't believe that these people would trust others with what they were doing. Like, they would tell someone that who is not part of the heist, be like, oh yeah, we're gonna go steal art at, like, you know, the Met, just, you know, don't mind us. It's like, what? I feel like you would not tell people about you stealing really expensive art from museums. So it just felt like how the heist was handled was just the most ridiculous thing ever. And to be honest, heist stories are kind of ridiculous and unbelievable, but this one I just could not believe would ever happen, ever. So for that reason alone, I gave it 2 stars. I think the topics on being Chinese American and exploring all that was great. I really enjoyed reading that and learning more about that, but I just did not like the heist. It just kind of ruined the story for me. Hello, sorry, I had to take a quick little break, but we're back to talk about the final book that I read in October, which I absolutely did not love at all. I did not like it. So that book is The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. I did not like this book at all. I gave this a 1-star rating. I just thought it was so juvenile and the characters were so obnoxious to the point that I couldn't even focus on the story. I was just so annoyed by everything they were doing. So I give this 1 star. I had a huge rant in one of my reading vlogs that if you'd like to hear that, go check out that video because it's kind of hilarious, and I just did not like this at all. It just was real bad. And to tell you all my Goodreads review, I basically said this reads like a CW show with Twilight level cringe. That's all you need to know. It's real bad. So those are all the books that I read in the month of October. It was a crazy month in terms of reading. I'm hoping November I can just, you know, flow through the month and just read whatever sounds good and just enjoy it, because while I did like a fair bit of these, a lot were 3-star reads, and I'm hunting for more 5 stars because I don't have hardly any, and to film my end of year videos, I kind of need a few to talk about for the best books of the year, which is going to be kind of hard to talk about if I only have like 3 or 4. So that is going to be it for me. I hope you all enjoyed and had a great reading month in October, and I will see you all in another video soon. Goodbye!